Alright guys, welcome back to the Introverse Uncharted channel here. It's been a minute. Been a hot minute. My last video post was, early February. And at the time I felt really ambitious and like I could do 1,000 projects at one time, and that did not happen. So my sincerest apologies. I know I said I was going to post weekly, and obviously that is long gone. Lots of new stuff coming our way here. I'm going to try to do, some traditional Introverse Uncharted shows here and there as well. But this will be our first edition of something I'm going to call John's Culinary Corner. And we're going to work on recipes and just some culinary skills that I can embark and show you guys, from my time learning. I've said it in the first couple episodes, I've been doing this just about 10 years. I'm a graduate of the Escoffier School for the Culinary Arts in Boulder. I am Serve Safe and Tri-County certified, so I have been here and there and doing a bunch of stuff to try to improve my skills. I'm the current kitchen manager for Blue Spruce Brewing in Littleton, so I do this on the daily. Not necessarily the way that you'll be seeing it here, but hopefully, some of these skills kind of bleed in and out. And honestly, for you guys, it just might be fun to see how you can cook some interesting stuff at home, right? Today we're going to start with a really, in my opinion, an easy one, but also a staple and a classic in just a risotto. Okay, risotto is fun. It's easy. It's a nice starch dish. If you've watched things like Hell's Kitchen, Ramsay obviously holds risotto high. He does things like lobster risotto. That is not what's going to be taking place here today. But once you get the technique, you can kind of adjust flavors and profiles and all this stuff kind of as you see and how you want. It's all about what you want and how you can customize to make your dish. The cool thing about risotto, at least in my opinion, is it's not very expensive. Arborio rice is easy to come by. You can actually find it at King Soopers. I just get the little Kroger bag, $1.99. Easy stuff. You'll use some chicken stock, whatever kind of stock you want. If you're doing like a seafood risotto, you're going to want to use more of a seafood stock. I use chicken stock for almost every risotto. I feel like chicken stock itself is very customizable. It's very mobile in the sense of it can cover a lot of ground with different proteins and stuff like that. I've used it for pork dishes, stuff like that. Just helps, in my opinion, boost some of the savory aspect that you're looking for. Let's kind of get into it. Let's get into it. So I'll give you a little glimpse here. Sorry, I still don't have a 5-star production team, but just my setup. I use this setup all the time, daily basis. 4-burner stove. I already have pots and stuff going. All my items are ready to go over here. Now, let's chat about that for just a hot second. In culinary school and in kitchens that I've worked in the past, and honestly kitchens that I work in now, mise en place. Mise en place is very important. It's a French term. The French term is for putting in place. It just essentially means to have all your stuff ready to go before you start cooking. If you're running around, you're wasting time, especially within the industry. If you're doing it at home, there's obviously the fridge is right here. Okay, like I can get to it. But for instance, in my current job, the walk-in fridge is in a completely different room than the room that I would be generally cooking in to sell items to the public. So I would have to move from room to room if I don't have everything that I need available right now where I need it to be available. Mise en place is very important. I had a chef tell me when I was working at a senior care facility not too long ago that any wasted steps are wasted time, and to just make sure that you have everything available and ready to go at the drop of a hat. And that's what I've tried to do here today so that you guys can see, what the setup should really be looking like. Gonna get mobile with you here for just a second. But I have everything that I need for today ready to go in this area. including stock already hot, rolling around, okay? So we're going to bring this back on over. It's very important that you guys have everything ready to go. And honestly, a lot of times it's stuff like if you already have oil heating up but you don't have your onion cut, that oil eventually will start to scorch. It'll change the flavor and complexity of your dish. You don't want to do that. You don't want to add any burn notes, nothing like that. The easier and more simplistic you can make your process, and that includes setup, cooking, cleaning. Clean as you go, guys. I tell my cooks in my kitchen all the time, to clean as you go. If you make a big mess and you leave it for the whole day, that mess just continues to get bigger. In a household kitchen, you definitely don't want to be leaving a huge mess, You want your environment to be clean and stuff like that. Professional kitchens, I know a lot more than not will leave the mess or whatever until a quiet period of time. But in your home kitchen, keep in a spot where you feel you can clean and get ready to go. You want to be able to move from one thing to the next to the next. So again, we're going to do a risotto today. Got my chicken stock already rolling. That's very important. Okay, you want hot stock going into your risotto. If you get that pan hot and you're toasting up your arborio rice and you dump cold stock in there, you are taking huge steps backwards. Stock hot, ready to go. Not every ingredient I use today is going to be completely traditional to the process. Okay. Most people who like to make risotto like to use whole butter and stuff like that. I actually currently don't have whole butter on hand, but I do have some oil, and I have some spread and stuff like that. Butter spreads and stuff like that you get from the grocery store are essentially oil. They break down like oil comparatively to butter, but works nonetheless. And honestly, one of the cool things I think about this show is going to be that I don't always have all of the 5-star ingredients and stuff like that. So you guys are going to be able to see how to make pretty good dishes, and not always with, $100 budget. I obviously know that with grocery prices and inflation, even a lot of times cheap dishes don't seem as cheap as they once did. But this one is still, like I said, it's rice and oil and a little bit of cheese, maybe some, veggies here and there, stuff like that. It's an easy one. It's a fun one. You're probably out $10-15 at the end of the day, worst case. So let's get started. Let's get into this process. All right. So I already have just some sweet onion diced up, ready to go. But I think it would be valuable for me to show you how I cut onions. I was shown this way before I went to culinary school, but culinary school also showed me to do it the same way. I see plenty of people nowadays not cutting onions like this, and I think that it helps with the yield. It helps with the size of the onion that you want, especially in your rice dish like this. You don't want it to be, in my opinion, too big, but this helps you be able to control the size of the product that you're trying to put out. So let me adjust here, and then I will get started. I got my cutting board here ready to go. This is going to be a real tip of the hat to a lot of the chefs that I worked with at culinary school who had to teach me at times via camera like this. This is not something I do every day, obviously, so bear with me, but it looks like you guys can see the board pretty good right now. So I have half of a sweet onion. You can do this with all types of onions, obviously. They're all shaped essentially the same. Structure's all essentially the same, all that kind of stuff. This is a pretty successful technique in my opinion. Obviously do as you do, but always be safe too with knives, guys. Like, it doesn't take very much for you to miss and hit your finger or whatever. You don't want to do that. So, all right, when we're looking at this guy, I like to take the flatter side. Like kind of a round guy, flat guy, right? And what I do is I'll make 3 slits this way, okay? So hand on top of the onion, pushing it down, make your 3, 1, 2, Three slits. They'll make for 4 rows on the onion, which I'm sure you can kind of see there. All right. Now, this is the part that I think is really cool. You're going to make cuts this way on the vertical based on the width that you want your onion pieces to be. Okay, so we're making a risotto. I don't want it to be very large, so I'm going to go here, and when you hold it together, you're just going to try to find a consistent size of onion that you want in your food. Okay, so now you're going to get something kind of along the lines of this. Change up the perspective here just a little bit. So when you're looking at it, you can see now it has all these little slits in it. These slits are going to be the width of the pieces of onions that you're going to cut across, okay? All right, put those guys back. So, now when you go at it, start cutting. Right there, you're going to get very similarly sized pieces of onions from this cut method. See? Just like that. There's going to be some outliers. Sometimes you miss, sometimes you don't. Obviously what I'm showing you is not 5-star dining quality, but we're just talking about cutting onions. And that'll get you a pretty consistent cut almost every time. As long as you are picking a similar width to every one of your hash marks, okay? So now we can move that. Get that on out of our way. Now I obviously have a full onion cut at this point. One to kind of show you obviously my technique and how I like to do it, and one that I did for mise en place, just to be ready to go for this. We will not be using the whole thing. That would be complete overkill for a simple risotto. We're going to bring it over here. We're going to get a pan on. I'll move it around so you can see it, but I just use a very standard saute pan. You don't have to have 5-star equipment, is what I'll say. Pans are pans in their own way, shape, and form. As long as you take care of them and don't chip away at them, they all do essentially what you want them to do. Almost everybody brands their stuff as non-stick and with the Teflon coating and all that kind of stuff. I've been doing this a while, so I try to have a little bit more of the fancier side of the pans. But I can tell you that a lot of times they still work the same way, obviously, as your run-of-the-mill pan. I used copper for a long time. I felt that the copper kind of wore down. Not like your standard Copper Chef commercial where like you could just slide eggs around in the pan. Eventually that Teflon coating kind of went away. So the new route that I went is for these guys, the Hell's Kitchen edition pans. They're a little worn and torn, they've been around for over a year for me now. But in that year, they still hold up really well. I've still had no problems with sticking and stuff like that, unless I'm not doing something on my end, if I'm not using oil still. You can drop an egg in there and it won't stick, but eventually, like all things, the longer you do it, the more it's going to stick. So here we go. We got pan on. We're going to start applying some heat to that pan. Okay, I just would go in a medium high kind of range. What we're going to end up doing, first off, is sweating onions and garlic. Now, what sweating is you're going to get oil or butter into your pan. You're going to get that oil and butter hot. You want it to be hot, ready to go. When you drop stuff into it, you want it to make that sizzle sound. You want the sound, okay? Sound is beautiful. It also means that you're cooking. It's not just sitting in cold oil. So when you get that going, when you get the oil nice and hot, Gonna put those onions in first. Onions are gonna take longer to get where you want them to get than garlic is going to. When garlic burns, for those of you who don't know, it gets bitter. So you don't want that to be in there just on the pure heat by itself for a ruthless amount of time. It'll make your whole dish bitter. That's not a good time. It doesn't taste good. You don't want that. But when you put the onions in, you're going to start looking for them to turn translucent. Okay, translucent means that it's going to be, you're going to start to be able to almost see through it. It's going to be ghostly, maybe. You're going to be able to see through it. It's going to lighten up. This is exactly where you want to be. As you start to get these things translucent, you can add the garlic in. And then, you know, this process kind of continues a little bit just until you get that onions and garlic aromatic is what culinary school would call it. Aromatic. You want to be able to smell all of these elements, you know, caramelizing and coming together. And once we're there, we can move to the next step. But let's get us turned here and let's take a look here at what we're going to be getting into. I'm going to move it a little closer. All right. So, pan heating up. I turned on the heat just as we started talking about it, and we're going to put a little bit of oil in there. It does not have to be a lot of oil. Too much oil and it's going to pool up, make your food really greasy. You don't want that. Greasy rice is not fun, and it doesn't taste good by any means. So we're going to get this going. You can see the oil kind of moving around in here. Now when oil is hot, it'll make little streaks that almost look like waves across the pan as you're moving it around. This pan was already fairly hot. It's not going to take very long to get this oil to the same temperature. So we're just going to give that an extra second or two. And that second or two gives us time. We're going to get our onion over here. We're going to get ready to go. Now you can test whether or not your oil is hot enough by simply dropping it in. And when you drop it in, I got the sizzle, I got the crackling, and you see kind of the bubbles coming off of that onion there. Just gonna peel out here. So you can see what I'm saying? We're going to get that bubble, that good look going. Now we're going to add, there we go. Get our onions going. We can move those aside. Hopefully you guys can hear it. Got my microphone going over here. But we got that sizzle happening, you know? Got that sizzle going on. Boom. Now you can already kind of tell, again, where we're headed here. We're looking for that translucent approach. So when you're looking at it, you'll be able to see them start to become clear, which is exactly where we want them to go. Bring you guys back over. Sorry about that. Okay. Now you don't have to, I obviously just did like that nifty little pan flip with the onions in there. You don't have to do that. You can use spoons. I have plenty of spoons. And honestly, the deeper we get in here, the more I'll use the spoons. But, if you want to do it, it's really fun. A lot of people I know who don't cook a whole ton and see me do it always think that it's ridiculous and that you can obviously burn yourself, which you can. I've learned that the hard way plenty of times. But, work within your means and stuff like that and have fun with it. That's the best part of this, is having fun with this process, okay? So we're good. We're going here. We're moving along. You can see we're getting some more of that toasted color in there, right? So as we get to this point, we can start adding back in. We're going to add in some garlic here. This is exactly what we're going to do. Some nice tablespoons worth. Boom. All right. There we are. We're moving along. Now, again, you can see, look at the garlic is very quickly getting that gold thing going on. Garlic hits that point very quickly. So now we're here. We got that going. We're going to take a cup of arborio rice. Arborio rice, if you guys have never used it before, it's a smaller, more round grain. It has a very fibery texture when it's raw. And what we're going to do with it is we're going to toast it. So we're going to put it in raw. No water, nothing like that. Right into the pot. And we're going to start to get everything that's in that pan kind of incorporated together. Now we can adjust some of the oil kind of as needed too, in case we need a little bit extra, which in this case we might need a little bit. Those onions and garlic absorb oil for sure, but you don't need a ton, okay? You just need enough to get that toasting process happening. Now it's going to look and do exactly kind of what you want it to do or what you're thinking it's going to do when it comes to toasting grains of rice. You're going to want it to start to get that golden brown toasty look. It's not happening yet, but just to kind of give you a look at the incorporated process that's happening right now. So now this is going to start to toast up. When rice grains toast up, in my opinion, they get kind of an earthy, nutty smell to them. A lot like if you've ever made a roux, which is, you know, flour and fat that you would use to thicken sauces. When your roux starts to hit that perfect point, it smells like, you know, kind of like pine nuts. Similar in process. You're going to be looking for that aromatic smell. But more than anything right now, what you're just trying to do is get the grains toasted. You don't want to burn them, but you want to get them toasted. And this isn't the full process to the risotto, because we still got stock that we're going to add in, which is going to do that typical cooking of the rice that you would do in, you know, say a rice cooker or whatever, but it's going to be more out in front, more, you know, it's not covered. They're not steaming. They're boiling more so. We're going to keep this stuff moving, though. Now, you don't have to keep it moving on a constant basis. You want it to toast up. You want it to get brown. But you still want to shake it around a little bit and make sure that you're cooking it evenly and you're not missing grains and stuff like that. Now, once we get the stock into the pan, we can season it up as well, okay? What I would recommend, though, is not using too much in the way of salt products. So depending on what stock you're using, salt is pretty naturally or salty if you're not getting like the low sodium version. I personally use this like bouillon stuff. Now you can buy liquid stock, that's fine. Liquid stock, in my opinion, though, at times is a little on the pricey side, mostly because you're going to get a quart or so for, you know, $3.99, and I got this whole container for $3.99 at King Soopers. So you can stretch it and go a distance. This one specifically is just a vegetable stock, so it's not a protein-based stock, just vegetable. But this specific brand sells a chicken stock as well, which I have used from time to time. Today, the one I have is veggie stock. Now, I know I said that I like to use chicken stock more often than not. But, you know, like I said, sometimes you just don't have it on hand or whatever, and we can customize and work as we go. You can still get some of that savory aspect as we're moving through. But now let's move in here and take a look at this. You'll be able to see we got some of that caramelization happening here. You can see some of that gold happening in those grains of rice. Now as we get here, make sure we get it moving. And we're going to grab a ladle. Let's move our stock so that it's closer to the rice, because we're going to be moving the stock now. So you're going to take one, and we're just going to get it right in there. a touch extra just to make sure you get coverage on all the grain. Sit that in there. And now that's the process that's currently taking place. Now we're boiling this rice, essentially. We've added our hot stock into our arborio rice that has been toasted. So let's just kind of run through the steps real quick so that everybody is still on the same page, right? So, mise en place. Everything exactly where you want it, okay? Putting everything in the place that you need it. Once you have all of your stuff set up and ready to go, you want to get your stock rolling. You want to get stock on the stove, get it hot. Once that stock is hot, you get your saute pan, some oil or some whole butter. You get into that pan, you get it nice and hot, and you drop in your onions first, and you sweat your onions. You want to sweat them all the way to translucent. Then you add in your garlic. Once that's happening, you can add in your rice. And you want to toast it, get that nice golden brown and that earthy smell happening. Then you add your hot stock in. Now, if you look, it's going to soak up all that stock. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go again. Just like that. This is going to be kind of a wash, rinse, repeat cycle here for just a hot second, okay? You want to keep doing this until the rice is cooked. Once the rice is cooked, we can go into the finishing of this dish. But right now, it's just about making sure that this rice cooks all the way through. You want to taste it. Make sure, let's get up here real quick. Make sure you're tasting your stuff, guys. For sure, make sure you're tasting it. If you don't taste this right, as it's going, and you plate it with raw grains of rice, it's a lot like, in my opinion, chewing on a stick. You get some splintery, grainy, just not a good time. It's not fun. It doesn't taste good, okay? You want that rice to be smooth, but you don't want it to be mushy either. So the process on that one is called al dente. You want the grains of rice to be al dente. Al dente means to the tooth, okay? Tender, yet firm and chewy. So what that says at the end of the day is you want it cooked. You don't want it to be mashed potatoes. Rice, if you overcook it, gets mushy and disgusting, and you don't want that process to happen because then you're too far and you have to restart. It's just not a good time. I've even had that happen in rice cookers if you add too much water. So you just want to do a little bit here and there and then give it a try. A little bit here and there and give it a try. The rice will tell you when it's done. Like I said, you'll lose that splintery feel, especially in arborio rice. You'll lose that splinter in your mouth thing from happening. So, again, just another fun culinary term, al dente. Al dente can be used with grains of rice and stuff like that, but it's more so seen with pasta. You want your pasta to be cooked al dente, and especially if you're a professional within the industry, al dente means you haven't overcooked it and you can use it for reheat a little bit, okay? So, like, if you pre-cook pasta, I worked at Noodles & Company for a long time, and they pre-cooked their stuff, cooled it down, and then dropped it in their pot before you serve. If you cook it to al dente, you're not overcooking it if you just give it the splash to get some heat to it. If anything, you're finishing it off. But let's kind of get back in here real quick. Let's see where this process has taken us. Sorry, I'll get this whole camera work thing down, I promise. Move that around a little bit. But you can see the process that's happening. These onions have caramelized up. Sure, we got some dark spots that you kind of want to, avoid at times, but like for the most part, it's going to be just fine. Okay. These things happen. Again, this process isn't like 5 Michelin star or whatever. You know, it's not, this process isn't taking place. You just want it to taste good and to get there. And this process that I'm showing you is just not, it's an easy process. It's a pretty quick process too. You know, we've been going at this for, 25-ish minutes, including just a little bit of chatting. So we're going to keep going here. We're going to need at least probably one more round of stock. So we're going to get that in there. Perfect. It's in there. It's going to be ready to go. Always keep a spoon on hand for tasting. It's like I said, you taste it all the time, especially when you're talking about seasoning. So for today, I'll just use, I know that looks like a mess, but there is 200 plus seasonings in that cabinet. It used to be really organized. It's not anymore. But always good to have a ton of seasonings on hand. Seasonings are cheap and just beyond versatile. You can do anything with them. This one is, I use it a lot, but it's not the fanciest, obviously. It's your run-of-the-mill Italian seasoning blend. For something like this, for this exact palette that we're heading on here, it's going to be just fine, okay? And we've already added, like, garlic in. So I would avoid something like a garlic salt. Again, the stock is going to be naturally salty. You already got fresh, minced garlic in there. So you're just going to add some of your seasoning in just like that, right? See, there was a great example of that mise en place thing. See, I missed putting that on the counter, and I had to go and search for it, which luckily in a home kitchen is, again, not very far. But if you're working in a professional grade kitchen, you don't want to have to go running for your seasoning or your black pepper or any of that. You want it to be able to be right here, ready to go. So we're not there yet. Still got a little bit of that fibery thing happening in the rice. And we're just going to keep this process going, though. That's the thing. See, now we're just in getting that rice to the cooking point. And we'll keep adding stock until we get there. The recipe that I have from school for this specific dish says about 2 quarts of stock, which I think is pretty accurate, but you also want to make sure that the rice is cooked through. So if you need a little more, you need a little more. We can keep going through. I had about 2 quarts in this pot to start off. So you're keeping that temperature up. We're going to keep this boiling. Again, you'll be able to watch it. I mean, obviously it's steaming and stuff like that. That stock is soaking in and evaporating. It's going away. And that's just it doing the whole cook process. Yeah, we're getting close. It doesn't take too outlandishly long to get this to where you want it to be. Now, obviously, I've shown this to you in a very broken down kind of way. But for those of you who do watch things like Hell's Kitchen and stuff like that, obviously Ramsay has it so that they're capable of cooking risotto and stuff like that in under 6 minutes and stuff like that. A lot of that rice is par cooked, partially done. When you got to go through the whole toasting process and stuff like that, it's going to take time. And in an environment like that, they don't want ticket times to go outlandishly long, especially with apps and stuff like that, and all of their meals come out in courses, things like that. So a lot of times places like that will par cook their rice, get it started, cool it down. Oh, like I was talking about with the pasta for Noodles and Company, where you would just get it all nice and started, but you don't want to go all the way, because if you go all the way and then you try to reheat it, you're overcooking it. So you're just going to go a little bit, and then you would pull it and you'd like slack it out onto sheet trays and cool it down. With rice and stuff like that, if you try to cool it down, you want it as flat as possible. If you like stack it up or put it in a bowl or something, the stuff on the bottom isn't cooling down as fast as the stuff on the top. You want to put it on a sheet tray and get the whole thing cooling at the same time. But what I will say is, especially for at-home cooking, try to not have to par cook if you don't absolutely have to. Restaurants do it, I think, for efficiency, and in this situation, we don't need that kind of thing. We can do it all from scratch. We can do it in the moment. Get back over here to it. We're still rolling around here. Now, most of that stock, again, is soaked up. You can see kind of this stuff up here is almost turning into like a gel. Almost like a sauce. In my opinion, this is really good for the creaminess of the dish. And when you add in things like cheese and stuff like that as well, that dairy is going to help you as well. We're going to try it again, make sure that everything is on track. Nice. We are probably less than a minute out on this guy, so we're going to put one more little scoop in here. A touch extra. Now when this soaks up, we should be just about where we want to be. At least in order to get into the steps for finishing it off. So, cheeses to finish, okay? So, you can put, in my opinion, I'm sure that there are people who would disagree, you can put any kind of cheese you want into a risotto. It all works out. You're just looking for that creamy texture, right? But you want it to complement the flavor profile that you're also, looking to get. Again, shows like Hell's Kitchen and stuff like that, they use fancy cheeses, stuff like Manchego and stuff like that, which is good for the texture they're looking for, and they're using the seafood stock and all that kind of stuff. I don't have that kind of stuff on hand. I do have, this is going to be funny in its own way, I have that new Taco Bell Salsa Verde cheese, which I think we're going to use today just because it has an actually nice vegetable-y taste to it. I don't necessarily know how they got there, but it works, it's pretty good. But we're going to keep this rolling. We got most of that stock again soaked up. I know at this point it's probably just showing you the same thing of rice over and over again, but it's important for you to see that you got to get it through these stages in order for it to be exactly what you want it to be. All right. We're going to let it cook down. Just a little more of this liquid out of it, but it is just about done. It is just about where we want it to be. All right. So now at this point, pretty generally, what would happen is you'd add in a second batch of butter. So if you used whole butter to start this out, you would use a little bit of butter to get the vegetables translucent and sweated and ready to go, and to get the toasting of your rice grain. But at the end, you want to finish it off with a little bit more. So again, I don't have whole butter, but I do have some butter spread. And we're just going to get in here, and we're going to put a little bit of it in. We can lower that heat down because we're not really looking for full-fledged cooking at this point. We're just looking for coating these grains of rice in this fat, which is going to start to get your creamy texture happening back into this. At this time, we can also flatten it out a little bit. Let's put our cheese in here. It doesn't have to be a ton of cheese, you know. Go to taste. I know plenty of people that don't like a lot of cheese. I'm not one of those people. I will live and die by cheese. Now let's kind of take a look here at what's happening. So you got that glassy look that's happening from getting that fat back in there. And then as we're mixing it around, you can see what the cheese is doing. It's, again, creamy. And it's holding these grains of rice at this point together. We want to make sure it gets entirely incorporated. You don't want patches in your pan of rice that isn't coated in all of these ingredients, okay? But you can see kind of what's happening here. Right in here especially. Nice, creamy, has the liquid coating, all that good stuff. So we can remove this from the heat now. Okay. We're going to take it off. And then we're going to look here and we're going to do a little bit of plating. Plating is very important. Let's see what I can find here. So for today, we're actually going to go, I have some smaller plates. Nice little design on them. Nothing too fancy. I also have, like, the standard plates that I use at home are black. But, you know, I think for this dish specifically, we're going to get a lot more out of the area. Because you want to use the area. You want to use, you don't have to use the whole thing, though. Okay, that's probably, I was heading in a wrong direction there. You don't need to, like, fill a plate completely coast to coast. If you look at a lot of the most beautiful food presentations, they just cover space in different ways with you know, sauce sides and garnishes and stuff like that. Making a beautiful plate, though, is very important, because when a plate is taken to you at a table in a restaurant, you eat that food with your eyes first. If it doesn't look good, your brain is going to tell you that it doesn't taste good, even if it does. It's mind over matter, but you want to take the time to make your plates look good. There's a difference between eating and dining, and at home you should definitely treat yourself and have a good time. I find myself in the kitchen a lot at home trying to do almost more eccentric plating than I do even in the restaurant or whatever. You know, different types of restaurants plate differently and stuff like that. The restaurant I work in right now is more of a deli. So we do sandwiches and flatbread pizzas and stuff like that, which we use baskets and stuff for. But like at home, if I'm doing, you know, chicken and risotto, I'm going to use a plate, and I'm going to try to make it look as pretty as possible for everybody who's going to be enjoying that with me. So let's start kind of moving here into plating, okay? So we're going to get it on here. We'll talk about things like wiping the edges here in a second, but we're going to get just a nice little layer. This is kind of like a snack plate in my hand currently. It's not going to be the most full thing that you've ever seen, But here's the process, okay? We're going to lower this down so we can take a look here at what I'm going to be doing. You're going to want to have clean towel, paper towel, whatever. But you always want to pick that line. And the inner bowl is always where I feel the most comfortable. And then you can still get these edges that look really nice. But, I mean, as you can see during the scooping and stuff like that, I got some up on the rim of the plate. And you just want to go through and make a pass. Make sure that your plate is nice and clean, ready to go. I use fresh cracked black pepper. You don't need a ton of it. Black pepper goes a long way. And a little bit of spinach there on the topper. Bam. Make sure that I can see what you guys are seeing. So there you go. A risotto plate. It's not flawless by any means, but fun and easy and not outlandishly expensive. Okay, guys? That's one of those things I had told you guys when I did my cold weather episode in February, was not every item that you have to cook with and stuff like that has to be the most expensive. You can turn a lot of the cheaper ingredients into great things. If you want some solid examples of that, go check out Next Level Chef. They do cooking in tiers, and the bottom tier, the people on the bottom level, get what's left of the ingredient base, essentially, and they have to make great things out of what's left, while the other tiers are taking the better ingredients. So these are just really good examples of taking something that maybe isn't the most beautiful thing you've ever seen and turning it into something good. You can do that with a lot of cool stuff. I've turned canned foods and stuff into fun and exciting foods. It's just about, how much imagination you have and where you want to go with it. And always pick a theme. Always pick something to be your baseline. The risotto I did today is obviously vegetarian, or more vegetarian than I would normally be going with. But you can add proteins in. You can do shrimp. You can do lobster. You can do all sorts of cool stuff with risotto. I use spinach as the topper. Plenty of people don't use a vegetable as a topper and stuff like that, but I like the color. Adding spinach in is a nice, vibrant green, and that's always a good thing to have, just an offsetting color, right? Set this guy aside. All right, guys. So that was risotto. Just running through the steps real quick one more time as a summary more than anything. Mise en place. Get everything exactly where you need it. Exactly where you need it. You don't want to be running around. Once you do that, stock, get it on, get it hot. Get oil in your pan, get that hot. You can put your onions in, get them sweating, get them translucent. Then you can add in your garlic. Again, garlic that cooks too long is bitter. You don't want that. Once you get that aromatic, nice smell happening, you put in your rice grains. The rice grains go in raw, and you're just looking to get a toast on them. You're looking for them to start turning gold. You don't want them to burn. You want them to get that nice golden look to them. Once you get there, once you get the gold and you get the earthy aromatic smell, you're going to want to add in your stock. And you just add in your stock until your rice is al dente. Okay, al dente, to the tooth. Tender, but not mush, essentially. Once you get there, you can pull it from the heat, add back in a little bit more of your fat. Okay, I used, again, a butter spread today, but you can use whole butter. I've used oil in the past. Oil itself, like just oil, isn't as good, mostly because it's just coating with oil at that point. It's not creamy, but I've done it. You can do it. I just wouldn't highly recommend it. Cheese, again, just add in any type of cheese. You want to get that nice, creamy, stringy look. Again, today I didn't have a 5-star cheese. I had a bag of Taco Bell cheese. But you can do fun stuff with it, and the plate still looked good at the end. So that's what really matters, guys. This is going to be hopefully a much more common thing, doing this John's Culinary Corner, where I can teach you guys some stuff and make some recipes here in my own kitchen and get them up on YouTube for you guys. I'm also looking to do another episode of just our regular Introverse Uncharted show. So hopefully all that's coming down the pipe for you guys here soon. Again, sorry for the long gap in time. Like I said, I bit off a little bit more than I could chew. Not shy about admitting that, and things fell to the wayside, and now hopefully we can get back onto a regular schedule and do some fun stuff here with you guys. But as always, do more than just exist, guys. Have a good time, live life. Let's eat some good food. Cheers, guys.